All right. We need Jackie. Not yet. I'd like to call the Finance Subcommittee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Gendron?
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. Tonight's meeting, we have 2 items on the agenda. First is revisions to the purchasing policy. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Frisch. If you could just go through the revisions in your recommendations briefly.
Okay. Be happy to, Mr. Gignac. So we have before you a memo to Salah Gelfawi, Superintendent, from Gary Ann Frisch. The N stands for Nathaniel, by the way. Dated August 17, 2016. We brought this memo to the school committee, and it was at the school committee requested to go to the subcommittee. So here we're going to entertain this. There's actually 3 policies or procedures that I want to run through. So the first one is the purchasing policy. And it's file DJ. So if we can turn to that policy and we can, I can explain some of the changes. So tell me when you're ready. Ready, okay. So we crossed out old titles and put in new titles, but between the time that we first presented this and today, I received a new title, the Assistant Superintendent for Finance. So what I'm suggesting is my full title is Assistant Superintendent for Finance / School Business Administrator. So I'm suggesting that we use that title to replace the Assistant Superintendent for Business. And then there was some questions regarding another change. The word prepare was crossed out and the word approve was inserted. I think that's on the 4th line down in the 2nd paragraph. That essentially gives permission for the school business administrator / assistant superintendent for finance the authority to approve all requisitions that are less than the bidding requirements. There was some question at the school committee meeting whether we should, allow that to occur. That occurs today, matter of fact. So we are, in fact, I'm approving all requisitions that are under $35,000. And those are zillions and zillions of purchase requisitions. So from a practical sense, it doesn't make sense to bring all those purchase requisitions in front of the school committee. What does make sense is to develop some parameters.
If we could just stop right there. So correct me if I'm wrong, but did you just say that the current practice is not what is in front of us? It's not what the policy as it exists. So I believe the policy is that the school business administrator is authorized to prepare a requisition, but you're telling us that you have been approving requisitions under the $35,000.
Correct.
And why is that?
That's consistent. Well, the majority, yes, it's consistent with city practice or the city approval. City approval is adopted 35,000, and that's right. So it's consistent with state law and consistent with the city policy.
But this policy supersedes those as far as school finances are concerned.
There's no dollar amount on this. So I mean, to interpret this would be, um,
Right, there's no dollar amount, but it says when formal bidding procedures are not required. So formal
Right.
bidding procedures are not required under 35,000,
right.
correct? So there is a dollar amount included here. It's not written in numeric form, but it's suggested. So I recall a number of occasions where Ms. Martin had asked if we were continuing the practice of bringing forward all purchases over 5,000 to the committee, and your response was yes.
That's a separate issue. In fact, we are doing that, anything
For service contracts.
for service contracts, permission to enter.
Yeah.
But the original policy had 10,000. If you look at the next policy, bidding requirements, all purchases of materials and equipment and all contracts for maintenance and services in the amounts exceeding 10,000 will be based upon competitive bidding. So there has been a disconnect between the permission to enters, which is 5,000, and supply contracts, which we don't write. We've never wrote contracts for supply contracts for purchase of supplies.
Okay. Ms. Martin?
So just a clarifying question, because I believe what's happening is that the purchasing is basically happening through the PO system,
Correct.
which is a separate system than our service contract system, which comes under permission to enter.
Correct.
Okay, so based on this, we're still out of compliance, so that's a problem. But the reason is that we're talking about two different systems. POs are approved ahead of time, and it's already, so they're already in place, and that requisitions are just going against existing POs that have been vetted as you entered into those purchase order agreements. But the service contracts are individual contracts that we enter into for specific services, and those have been set up so that anything over $5,000 is
Yeah.
what needs to come to us.
Yes.
But it's a,
Right.
but again, this,
It's still out of, yeah.
all of us who can read can see that we're out of.
Right, and that's my initial concern, is that we're not following the existing policy. I'm fine with bringing forward policies to amend them and change them for moving forward, but it's a little concerning that we haven't been following the policy that's existed for quite a while.
Right.
Perhaps the superintendent would know, was I assume this policy was followed prior to Mr. Frisch's arrival?
Policy was followed prior to my arrival. These policies that we're doing was followed prior to my arrival. I mean, there was never any change implemented by myself or Mr. Frank Antonelli, never. These policies, as they were always applied, because when I came in, Mr. Lang was still the CFO, continued to apply. Actually, our first year, as you know, most purchases are done in the summer. They're not done at the bulk of everything we do is done in the summer. And Mr. Lang had conducted all of those, as he has always conducted them in the past with the school committee. We did not put any change at all of practice or policy or anything. The only time that we ever requested a change was before this committee with the formal other committee at the request of the city that asked us to align with them to make things simpler. So Mr. Frank Antonelli proposed just before he left, had suggested a change, but there was never any change of practice on our side. Whatever has been there for years and years and years is what we continue to do.
The actual practice, though.
Right.
Okay.
So if the practice had been out of alignment with your policy, then it must have been way before my time.
Okay.
Because we just continued it as is. We never changed anything.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you. So, what's the wish of the committee regarding this first? Yeah, Mr. Gendron.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. So, just so I understand, what we're asking for now is this proposal will allow you to approve any requisition outside of services that's under $35,000. right, Mr. Frisch?
That's correct.
Without any school committee approval.
Well, there are exceptions to the contract. I mean, to the bidding requirements. There's several exemptions to the contract, to the bidding requirements. Those are, for example, let's see, something that is already under a state contract is an example. So, to be honest with you, most of the items that we approve are under state contract, which is exemption under the state bid requirements, and which I believe would fall under your policy, the $10,000, because those items would not need to be competitively bid. So there might be one or two exceptions I can't recall out of the thousands of requisitions I approve, but predominantly we're purchasing anything that is significant is under state contract. And those state contracts are vetted and competitively bid.
Okay.
So,
Okay, but beyond that, it's under 35,000. And what about,
let me just stop you right there.
Okay.
So to just be clear, if we have technology as an exemption, so if there's a large technology purchase, that would be, that doesn't require to be competitively bid. So that could be something that I would approve, and it's over 35,000. And I believe that's consistent with your policy because it doesn't need to be competitively bid.
okay. So what I'm mostly concerned about is purchases that go beyond the budgeted level. You know, last year we had a lot of allocation of, I don't know, necessarily purchases, but there was a lot of allocation of funds that went beyond the budgeted level, and then at the end of the year we had to kind of rebalance everything.
Well, we had anything that there was some, predominantly we asked for approval for those budget transfers.
Ultimately.
Yeah. No, even prior to, there may have been some instances that that were within the page. So in other words, you approved budgets per page, and that's something we'll
Yeah.
get to later. But we never exceeded budget, whether it was approved by the school committee or it was our understanding that since it was within the page and it's just a reallocation from one account on the page to another.
Yeah. See, I would take an exception to that because I think that, you know, we take a lot of time to go through the line items on a page, and not to say that it isn't the right thing to do in a particular circumstance, but I think the committee ought to approve those transfers.
Okay.
I guess that's different than what we're talking about here. I was just,
We'll
there's a
get to
line here
that.
that says any commitment of funds beyond budget allocations must have prior committee approval.
Yeah. The transfers is the next item.
Okay. Okay, I guess we'll bring that up later.
Yeah.
Transfer thing, okay, thank you.
So for this, my suggestion, change the word prepare to approve, which essentially, I believe that the understanding was prepare meant approve, but to be more literal, and I like to be literal, and have the words say exactly what we mean, that it should be approved, which is the intent. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think, I can't support changing that. I've completely support changing the limits to follow the new law. But I don't want to change what is brought before us, because I understand that it's a lot of purchases that are made through the school department due to the size of the budget. But every other school committee in the Commonwealth signs off on every warrant, payroll, accounts payable, every single warrant. We don't do that. We designate that authority to you. So what this does, by bringing forward these items to us, it provides us a checks and balance. It provides us information on where these major purchases, these larger purchases are, what it's for, and it keeps us informed on what's going on in the finances. And I have no wish to sign all of the warrants because we would be in your office twice a week. But keeping this practice, I think, makes sense, and I'm pretty sure that's why it's in place. If we haven't been following this first page for quite a while, then we should probably change it or change the practice, which is fine. But the items that are brought before, I would like to see items, all items over 5,000, regardless of what the practice has been. Whether you have to bid it or not. And even if you have to go out to bid, if you have to go out to bid by law over $35,000, you select the winner, it should be brought before us for a final vote.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Anytime we go out to bid, then it's brought before the school committee for approval.
Yeah. And when the bid's prepared, do we vote on it before it's released?
Well, we tell you that we're going out to bid.
Okay.
And-
I'm only asking that question because last year when we went out to bid for the modular classrooms, there was a big error in that RFP, which caused a lot of issues for us, and caused the bids to come in much higher than we were expecting. That's the only reason why I asked the question. Any questions from the Finance Subcommittee?
I'm a little confused, though, exactly what, so just on this first policy, are you I'm not understanding, are you, the title changes you supported, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, at least I hope. Then there's the only other change, well, there's a cross out on the last.
I'm talking about this entire packet, not just page one.
Can we go one by one?
We
Yeah.
can, but we'll be here all night. So,
But
Yeah,
I'll
but
be
we-
here we'll be here all day if we're going to approve every purchase requisition.
I'm not asking to approve every purchase requisition. I'm asking us to follow the existing policy and update it to follow the new state law. That's fine. I have no problem with updating what needs to be updated. But I don't like hearing that we're not following a policy that exists because the city doesn't follow that. That's not the answer I'm looking for.
I'm not tracking.
Excuse me?
I'm not tracking or I'm not connecting with where you are.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I may be a little vague on this myself.
Okay.
But for me personally, the first part, the purchase orders, that the changes that have to do with the straightforward purchasing, I don't have a problem with that. That's why I would be in favor of taking each item. I obviously don't have a problem with changing the titles.
Okay.
But I think if we're buying standard materials and supplies, we don't need to see all that. I don't think we need to approve all those purchases unless there's some exemptions that's already built in,
Yeah.
and unless I'm misunderstanding that. I think when we look at the permission to enter contracts.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
That's
Yeah.
a separate thing, but it sounds like probably that the chair has problems with even the first one, even just the simple supply contracts.
Yeah, I just want to know if on the first file, DJ, can we make these changes and get those, bring it to school committee? That's all I'm
Would you
looking
like to
for.
make a motion?
Well, am I clear as that
Yeah.
you don't want to do that one either?
It's not that I don't want to do it, it's that I don't like hearing that we're not following the policy. It doesn't matter if the former assistant superintendent for finance did it one way. This is in writing for whoever takes your position is supposed to follow that policy. But
What are we not following? Can you be precise?
you just told us that you haven't been following this practice, that you have been approving requisitions prior to, without school committee approval? We just asked you that question. You said that's what you've been approving, not preparing.
Yes, I've been approving. So, for instance, if there's a $500 purchase for supplies, I'm approving it. It's computerized, and I'm pressing the button approve. I have about 1,000 to 2,000 invoices or purchase requisitions that I'm approving. That falls within the policy. Now, I did correct and say that if it's, we haven't had a situation for competitive bidding. So that situation did not come up between 10,000 and 35,000. So I think you're getting hung up on that. What we are in fact following the policy as it is written, because there hasn't been a situation where we had to competitively bid something. That wasn't, because we've been approving contracts that are in fact state-approved contracts. And that doesn't require, whether it's 12,000, 35,000, it's exempt from the bidding requirements.
Thank you. We're talking about interpretation of the language. If I read the language before any proposed change, the language says is authorized, the Assistant Superintendent for Business is authorized to prepare requisition. Clearly the intent authorized. I mean, why would you authorize person to prepare if that's their job to do it, to prepare it anyway? I don't need to authorize them to do it. And then further on it goes down to says requisitions shall be signed by the superintendent of or his or her designee. I think the intent that I'm sure the people before us, before I came in, why they were doing what they were doing is because they interpreted it that they're authorized to do the purchases. The contract, the service contract that come in the form of permission to enter, that was clearly another policy that says they have to come within a certain limit, they have to come to school committee. Because I remember from the time I came, it was always explained to me that, because every district does it differently, that in Lowell, the purchases are done under the superintendent, and in this case, the assistant superintendent is the designee. He prepares them, he executes them, and most of them are controlled by either state contract or their purchases. You know, there are tons of purchases. So I think that's what when you say they're not following.
Well,
There's no clear here.
I'm not saying that you're not following it. Your
what
assistant
he said. No, I
superintendent
meant
said
to
that.
him.
Yeah.
I meant to him. The way he
Okay.
expressed himself was probably a little bit overstated, saying
Okay.
you're not following. But I think if the intent of the school, of the subcommittee, is to change this, to clearly say we need to see all of them, then
That's
you
not
should
the
just put it in.
That's not the intent.
Yeah.
But I'll entertain a motion to accept the revisions on file DJ. Motion by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Ms. Dory. Yep. Motion, Mr. Gendron.
So I'm a little confused. Obviously the titles, prepare, approve, that could be semantics. But I'm wondering about the value, the number, right? We were talking about all the $35,000 number. Does that have to be changed somewhere?
Yes, we'll be getting to that.
Okay, we haven't got to that yet.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the next. There's three that I want to cover.
So here we're talking about file DJ, we're changing the titles, and we're changing a prepare to approve.
And I really
And we're
believe
fixing a
that
typo in the last line.
prepare meant approve. I'm sorry if I
And we're
interrupted.
fixing a typo on the last line.
Yes.
That's it, okay. Thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. You know what, I think moving forward, having this, you know, with prepare, approve, whatever, the mechanism that we have in place for this is the monthly budget report, so that we should be able to see on our monthly budget reports as we're tracking, not, you know, again, none of us want to see every pencil that you buy, but that we should be able to track a supply line across the
Right.
year. So that's perfectly fine. One question I do have is in terms of the sign-off from the superintendent or his designee, because my question would be, was that meant to have two sets of eyes on this? so that, I know in many accounting procedures, as you devise them, you want to have one person preparing something, one person approving it, so that it's not the same person. So I don't know if that was the intent with that final sentence that we're eliminating now?
I think it was. My personal gut feeling is that it was, because in my previous jobs, but I give you that it was smaller. No PO comes out without the superintendent as the second eye.
Okay, okay.
I think you're
So
right.
that,
in
that would need,
intent.
so just so long as we have that second catch, that second set of eyes looking at things. Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, can I? So we're removing the second set of eyes? By,
No.
but, the proposal here is to delete that last sentence.
That sentence, requisition shall be signed by the superintendent or his or her designee. In fact, when I approve it, it does have my electronic signature. So I would suggest we keep that in place.
Yeah, so why, yeah, I would agree. So I guess I'll amend my motion to say that we approve this with the exception of, we should keep the line, requisitions shall be signed by the superintendent or his or her designee. Okay?
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Come to
Motion
one page.
passed.
Okay.
Next page, Mr. Frisch.
Okay, here's where there is an amount, $10,000. This only comes into play when you have to competitively bid something. The majority of the items that we have are in fact that are above 10,000 are in fact they are state contracts. So this, and so what we're suggesting here is that we change this policy to reflect the next page, which is exactly what the state law indicates and what the city has adopted. So they have these. And this is the same thing that was proposed by Frank Antonelli, my predecessor. He was the interim assistant superintendent for finance. And this has already been adopted by the city. And so essentially, a lot of our policies, if they're not, the state law changes, we need to change our policies to update to the applicable state law. This is best practice, and I would recommend that we change the policy to reflect current state law as well as city ordinance.
Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
So I don't see a change recommended on this, though. Are you saying we just make that 10,000, 35,000, or
Well, I'm just saying replace it.
with these different categories that's
Yeah,
reflected on
and
DJER?
Yeah, these, right, this is the proposed change, and it's 2 pages.
Yeah.
So you want to replace all of DJE?
Right.
With DJER,
Right,
2 pages?
right. So it is a total rewrite.
And essentially, this will allow you to approve requisitions up to 35,000.
Or greater than 35,000 if they're not, if they fall under an exception
Okay.
to state law, which one of the exceptions is technology. There's like 22 exceptions. Another exception is something that is from a joint a cooperative purchasing pool or state-approved contracts.
Thank you.
Any questions? And all of your bidding goes through the city purchasing
Right.
agent?
All the bidding is, we
city.
work with Mike Vaughn, the chief procurement officer for the city. We work hand in glove with him to write the specs. We actually give him the specifications, he puts it into the proper boilerplate, and so we work directly with him.
And then through the city auditor, once it's finalized?
Yes.
Any question? Ms. Martin?
Could you give us just a real-world example of this? What would be the difference, at our next meeting? What will we see versus what we won't see if this is implemented?
We have, really, you won't see a difference. You won't see a change.
Okay.
This is just pretty much making sure the policy is reflective of the updated state law and city ordinance.
So when we come to our next meeting, we'll have a monthly, the budget report, the spending report will show us what it should of all these things that would have been spent that we may not have gotten prior notice of, but we'd be able to track it. And then we'd still be receiving a permission to enter for the service side of things, which aren't included in these bidding requirements.
Right. There would
Those
be
would
no
still be
change, difference on the permission to enter at this point. We are going to talk about PTEs, permission to enter.
Okay.
So the permission to enter, I know, has been something that has been cherished by the school committee. And so
Because we are held accountable to it, and it serves a real purpose for us. We're
Yeah,
not a
I
bunch-
didn't mean
we don't
that,
cherish a lot.
I meant cherished in a good way.
Okay.
Or sacrosanct, whatever.
Also a fairly strong word. Go ahead. So yes,
Okay.
we've certainly expressed an interest in wanting to maintain. it.
Yeah. So there's no change in this.
Okay. I'll entertain, other than the positions, because you'll have to change the title again to your new
Right.
position.
To
but I'll-
reflect my current title.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to accept recommendation as presented. Motion by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Gendron.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So voted.
Okay, I think the next one is the purchasing procedures. And again, it is, well, we'll go through a few of these. Mostly title changes.
Get another one.
But let's look on the last page of the handout. And you'll see inserted electronic signature. We don't hand sign the POs, it's an electronic signature. To protect the school system from incurring unnecessary bills, the following procedures have been established. Number 4 was crossed off. Material or equipment will not be accepted after the fiscal year period has ended or after a cancel order has been issued. In fact, that's true. We are allowed to issue purchase orders through June 30th. And so some of these items are coming in July. So we need to cross that off to reflect the practice.
Any questions? Okay. I'm fine with these changes, but I would ask that moving forward for all subcommittee meetings, if we could get all these documents a few
Sure.
days in advance, I think.
How many days?
Just
At least two.
at least 2.
I'll give you 3.
You give me, okay,
I'll do one better.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the changes listed on DJBR as presented. Motion by Mr. Gendron, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Lastly, Mr. Frisch.
We have just 2 or 3 minutes. So what we, since time is short, we would suggest that we have another subcommittee meeting scheduled at your convenience to finish the agenda.
Okay. Motion to refer the final item to a finance subcommittee meeting in the future. Motion by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Gendron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Gendron.
All right, thank you. Sorry, we ran out of time there, but,
Hi, John.